Hi and welcome. Hello, my name's Maria McMahon and I'm delighted to have you here. If you are joining me for the first time or if you're one of my subscribers and you're coming back again, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you spend visiting my channel, and I'm always aiming to provide as much information as I can for you. So the question of today's video is, if a narcissist tells you they love you, are they lying? Now, actually, the answer to that is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to explain why. And please stick with me because I'm going to share with you 4 simple questions that you can ask yourself and that will leave you in no doubt, okay? So before I get going, let me just quickly ask you, if you like this video, please like it, please share with anyone that you think might benefit from it. Always feel free to comment, subscribe as well, but to comment. I do read all the comments and love to see what people are thinking. So please do all that. And now I'm going to get back to answering this question. So why is the answer so complicated? Now, when a narcissist meets you, initially, they start the love bombing stage. What's happening is they're actually in love with an idealized version of you that they basically have in their own head. This is a version that has absolutely nothing to do with who you really are as a person. So they mirror you, and this creates this enigmatic rapport, the rapport that has you falling head over heels in love with them before you know what's even hit you. But after a while, and this can usually be quite a short time, but it actually can also go on, it can be much later down the line. I know people who've been with narcissists who hid the truth of who they were for years, and I'm talking like 15, even 20 years, it can happen. But what happens is they eventually start seeing you as a real person who can't live up to their impossibly high and totally false ideals of who you should be or who they think you should be. So then they start the devaluing stage, and this is where they can get really mean, and you're left reeling from the shock because you can't understand this Jekyll and Hyde behavior, and I mentioned that briefly in the previous video. You can't understand that, that dual personality that they're suddenly displaying. One minute they adored you, and the next, they're criticizing you, saying awful things, they're flirting in front of you with other people, they're withholding sex and affection, and they're just leaving you feeling absolutely wretched. But then again, in a heartbeat, they tell you they love you again. So do they? What the hell is actually going on? Now, this causes you even more confusion because you're yo-yoing back and forth emotionally. You're on a high one minute because they love you, on a low next because their behavior is telling you something completely different. It's utterly confusing. But here's the thing that you absolutely need to be aware of. This is all part of the narcissist's game. It's all part of their typical behavior patterns, and it's all part of their strategies to unsettle you. And over time, it becomes way more than just unsettling. It becomes devastating to your self-esteem, to who you are, to everything you thought you knew about yourself. All of that gets, torn to shreds, called into question. So now coming back to that question, if they tell you they love you, are they lying? The bottom line is that yes, they are. In the beginning, they're lying to themselves because they know the form. You're not the first person that they've love bombed, and you won't be the last. So they are just going back over their standard playbook because they know how well it works when they hone in on their target. That target, of course, being you. Now, during a relationship, they'll almost certainly be carrying on relationships with other sources of supply because one is never enough to satisfy their utterly insatiable appetite for narcissistic supply. And usually you'll have no idea about this initially, but eventually you will, and you'll end up quite often in a 3-way relationship where you know that person is cheating on you, and yet you still can't break up with them. You're still so locked in, trauma bonded, whatever, to the relationship, you simply can't walk away. You can't break away. I hear this happening all the time. I talked to a woman just the other day who had ended up living in the same house where the narcissist in her life moved his new girlfriend in to the same apartment they were living in. I know it sounds insane, but it happened. And she was living there, and she could hear them having sex in the next bedroom because, she moved out into a different bedroom at his insistence. And then before long, he ended up sleeping with both of them, not at the same time, although that's absolutely not unheard of either. Before she woke up one day and thought, what the hell am I doing, And then she reached out to me and we did some work on it, and she's moved away. She's completely cut contact with him. But when I say these types of things happen, it all comes from stories I've heard from clients I've worked with or people who share what's happening with them in my Facebook groups. So this stuff happens all the time, okay? Now, the truth of the matter is narcissists are lying about loving you because they are truly incapable of real love. A narcissist is basically an empty, hollow vessel who needs constant attention and adoration and incessant validation to make them feel good about themselves. And it's all about themselves. They're the center of the universe. Their own universe, and they have to make you and everyone else, they have to make sure those people orbit around them. This obviously exhausts you emotionally, often physically, and in other ways. And they lie, they cheat, they belittle, they degrade, they steal, not just your possessions and money, but they also steal your self-worth, your life, your very soul if they can. And they use this word love as a means to trap you and to keep you trapped in their web of lies and deceit. The simplest way to gauge if someone really loves you is to gauge them both by their actions and their words. And stick with me because I'm going to give you the 4 questions in a few minutes to just really ask yourself. But just think about it. Are they kind and gentle and loving and generous to you? Do they do what they say they'll do? Do they make promises and keep them? Do they love to see you happy and fulfilled? Are they supportive? Do they encourage you to do well, to go out and enjoy time with your friends and your family, to spend time with other people? Or can you honestly answer no to all of those questions or most of those questions? Do they instead utterly confuse you with gaslighting, saying one thing and then denying it, or spying on you, or running word salad rings around you and telling you that you're needy, insecure, jealous, suspicious, and accusing you constantly of doing all the things they're doing? Because this is all narc land. This is narc territory. This is the stuff they do. Are they doing that to you? Have they tried to isolate you from your family and friends? Do they constantly talk about themselves and have little or no time to hear or listen to anything that you have to say? Yeah? Now, if all of this sounds familiar and you're experiencing that right now, and yet you're still thinking, oh, but they love me really, I want you to ask yourself 4 questions. It's going to really help you to cut through their crap, more importantly, your own denial, so that you can see clearly what's going on. So question 1, I just alluded to, does this sound like the behavior of someone who loves you? Really ask yourself that. Do their actions match up to their words in any way, shape, or form that gives you the end result of, well, yes, this person loves me? So that's your first question. And feel free to pause this video and write it down and think about these things, because to get out of narcissistic abuse and get yourself healed, it requires that you stop denying stuff. It requires that you really understand where you are now, and it requires that you are honest with yourself. So write these questions down and really think about them. and let yourself reflect on the truth and the answers that come up for you. So question number 2 is, ask yourself what love really is and what it means to you. So by that I mean, what are your standards for a loving relationship? How do you define that? What does it really mean to you to be in a loving relationship? And jot things down. Get this down on paper. And then the question on the end of this question is, are you getting those standards met in the relationship? And again, please pause the video and write this down and really think about it. Now, the third question to ask yourself, the third question is, how do you show your love? Yeah, simple question. And it's very easy to get lost in the fog when you're in a narcissistic relationship. So these questions help you to pull back and say, well, hang on a minute. Yeah, actually, good point. So how do you show your love? What matters most to you in showing your love to someone that you love? Now, if you think about that and write down the things that come up for you, and now you reflect those thoughts and feelings to the narcissist and just do a quick comparison. How do they shape up? Okay. And the fourth question to ask yourself, and this can be a game changer. I actually worked with a client who, when I asked this question, the client looked shell-shocked. And the client said to me, you know what, I've never actually thought of it like that. And the reason that you don't think about it like that is because you get so caught up in the vortex of the relationship and you spend so much of your energy trying to be the right person, to be perfect, to not upset that person, yada, yada, that you can't see the forest for the trees anymore. So the question is, are you getting back even a fraction of what you are putting into the relationship? Or are you existing, almost scared of breathing, trying to keep that person happy? Are you walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around their volatile moods, hoping for crumbs of affection, or even just a bit of peace and quiet? Have you given up more and more of yourself to make them happy? So go back to that question. Are you getting back even a fraction of what you're putting into the relationship? And really think about it. What are you actually getting out of the relationship? And how's it all working out for you, giving so much of yourself for nothing in return other than abuse? Now, if you're honest with yourself, your answers to these questions will leave you in no doubt that the narc in your life does not love you and is not adding any value to your life, not a shred. Now, the truth is, if you are living with a narcissist, then you are not loved. You're being used and abused, and you will be destroyed and discarded unless you get the wake-up call, and I hope you do, and you decide enough is enough and you do the discarding. But one way or another, the relationship will end in you being very, very badly abused. It's only a matter of time when. So if that does apply to you and you are stuck in a relationship right now, how do you get out? How do you get over it? And I ask this question in tons and tons of videos, and I will keep asking it because it's the question you have to ask yourself is, how do I get out and how do I get over this? And my advice is always to get out and start living your life in freedom again. You don't deserve to be living in the misery that goes with narc territory. But the fact is, only you can make the decision to get out. And then when you do, you need to find the help and support to do that. There are tons of options. You can join support groups, you can get a therapist, and check my links below because I have Facebook support groups. I am a therapist. I have other resources. So check the links below the video. But the important thing is to make that decision that you're going to get out, and then you start working on an exit strategy, an escape plan, we sometimes call it. And that isn't always going to happen overnight. Depending on certain situations, you could be in a very deep long-term relationship with children, with businesses together, all sorts of things could be going on. So escape plans take time and planning, and that's why we call it a plan, because you have to really think everything through. So that's a subject for another video that I will eventually get around to making on how to plan your exit or your escape plan. So making that decision to leave is absolutely vitally important. Now, the other thing is to keep learning about this really vile form of abuse. And there's so much to know about narcissistic personality disorder and abuse and the different types of narcissist even. So in my next, I'm going to do 3 more videos where I'm going to talk about the different types of narcissists you might be dealing with. Because quite often I have people asking me, well, how do I know what kind of a narcissist this person is? It actually doesn't matter at the end of the day what type they are, because they are all malignant, they are all covert, they are all horribly toxic. But what it can do is help you to understand that they are not all the same flavor. A lot of people, when you mention the word narcissist, think, oh, loud and brash and full of themselves. And that is a certain type of narcissist, commonly known as an overt. But within that, there are different types, the cerebral, the somatic, and we've also got at the complete opposite end, the vulnerable narcissist, the kind that can really, really go fly under the radar because they don't present in a typical way that you typically think of a narcissist. So I'm going to suggest that you check out the next video coming up, because I'm going to talk about the cerebral narcissist. I'm going to end this here now because my neighbor's dog is barking, and I will see you very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.